There's a language that predates speech, one older than any dialect and more honest than any sentence ever uttered. It's written in gestures, reactions, and involuntary movements. This ancient form of expression flows through every muscle and nerve ending, revealing truths far deeper than any polite conversation. A woman doesn't need to verbalize attraction for it to be unmistakably present. Her biology does the speaking long before her mouth ever forms the words. While many men hang on phrases and sentences, believing clarity comes through verbal affirmation, others, those who understand the subtle dance of desire, pay attention to what cannot be concealed. They observe rather than inquire, sense rather than assume. Women may mislead with courtesy or conceal intentions behind pleasantries, but the body's involuntary rhythms, offers no such refuge. In every glance that lingers too long, every pause that lasts a beat more than expected, there are signals emanating from deep within, and these signals are not simply habits, they are echoes of biology molded over generations. This isn't mere guesswork or baseless theory. This is grounded in how the human nervous system responds to genuine desire. When arousal stirs, a cascade of physiological changes takes place, all beyond the reach of willpower or conscious effort. These aren't theatrical performances or learned behaviors. They are deeply embedded responses rooted in evolutionary purpose. For countless millennia, it served women well to subtly convey desire to men who showed promise, those who offered strength, stability, and competence without inviting unwanted attention from others. It was a survival mechanism as much as it was a signal of interest. Yet, herein lies the modern dilemma. The signals meant for recognition often go unnoticed. What separates flirtation from friendliness isn't always obvious to the untrained eye. The woman who simply smiles as a gesture of courtesy radiates a completely different energy than the woman whose smile holds an undertone of interest. And failing to perceive this contrast can lead to missed connections or worse, misread situations that lead nowhere. Real desire has physical markers, tiny shifts in facial tension, changes in muscle tone, and patterns of movement that defy rehearsal. A woman experiencing deep physical attraction will not just smile or laugh. Her eyes will dilate, her posture will adjust, her skin may flush slightly, all part of a symphony of reactions coordinated by her autonomic nervous system. These aren't gestures she controls. These are effects she endures. The eyes, perhaps more than any other part of the body, betray interest with stunning accuracy. When attraction ignites, the pupils widen in response to sympathetic stimulation. This reaction is so subtle it often escapes notice, yet it's as consistent as a heartbeat. And it's not just about the size of the pupil, it's the manner in which she maintains eye contact. A woman who gazes into your eyes a moment longer than needed, who lets the silence stretch with unbroken connection, isn't merely being polite. Her subconscious is already miles ahead of the conversation. And then there are the eyes that soften, the lids that lower just slightly, creating an expression steeped in unspoken invitation. These bedroom eyes aren't a myth. They're the byproduct of lowered muscular tension and increased blood flow brought on by arousal. They don't appear on command. They emerge only when her nervous system signals genuine involuntary excitement. And when her gaze drifts to your mouth more than once, when her focus shifts between your eyes and lips in a repeated rhythm, it's not because she's distracted. That's desire surfacing, raw and barely disguised. But attraction doesn't stop at the eyes. The rest of the body enters the dance too. Her stance shifts. She angles her body toward you in ways that seem incidental but are far from accidental. Even in a crowded space, she'll position her torso, her hips, even her feet so they align in your direction. This alignment isn't social, it's instinctual. Her subconscious orients her toward you because every fiber of her being seeks closeness. Her posture, too, takes on new energy. The woman who feels that pull toward you doesn't slouch or shrink back. She stands straighter, her chest subtly elevated, her shoulders back, not out of arrogance, but from a biological drive to appear more appealing. It's her body attempting to accentuate its most attractive qualities. It's not an act, it's a signal. And where space exists, she seeks to shrink it. She moves nearer, maybe just a few inches, maybe more. But the closing of physical distance is never arbitrary. A woman who finds herself stepping closer, who leans in during quiet conversation, who settles into your personal space without hesitation, is broadcasting interest in the most ancient way possible. Perhaps even more telling is where she positions herself in relation to exits or barriers. If she places herself where it's easier to move away, where a quick escape remains open, she may not be as invested in the interaction, but when she removes barriers, avoids turning her body away, and stays despite other options for departure, her actions speak clearly. Touch reveals even more. There's no greater giveaway than physical contact, especially the kind that begins under the guise of accident but persists with regularity. She brushes past, lets her hand rest just a second too long, finds excuses to touch while talking. At first the gestures are light, easy to dismiss, but as the minutes pass and the energy builds, her touch evolves. It becomes deliberate, more pointed. She might laugh and tap your arm, or playfully nudge you while making a point. These aren't expressions of platonic rapport. They're invitations, quiet but intentional. Touching doesn't always mean reaching out to someone else. Sometimes the most revealing gestures are those directed inward. When she caresses her own skin, plays with her hair, traces her neck or arms, she's subconsciously highlighting areas of her body she once noticed. These acts aren't rehearsed. They emerge from heightened sensitivity and a desire to be seen. And when you touch her in return, even lightly, and she doesn't withdraw but instead leans in, holds the contact or subtly returns it, you're no longer in the realm of uncertainty. Her body has made the decision her words may still withhold. But interest isn't only skin deep, it vibrates through her voice. When desire takes hold, even the way she speaks begins to change. Her tone may drop slightly, her voice becoming more velvety, more resonant. Sentences stretch, words arrive with slower cadence. The tempo of her speech slows, not because she's tired, but because excitement has altered her rhythm. Her breathing deepens, and so her sentences carry weight. Pauses become intentional. Spaces filled with electric silence rather than filler. She doesn't speak louder but quieter, pulling you in. Her whispers compel you to move closer, creating a private world where conversation becomes charged. And between words, she sighs, barely audible releases of breath that signal rising tension. These are not exaggerations. They're honest physiological outcomes of rising arousal. Her laughter changes too, becoming fuller, less guarded, more frequent. Her body is not merely reacting to humor but to presence. She feels seen, desired, and that triggers openness. Even the way she interacts with food and drink changes. There's an elegance to how she sips, how she nibbles, how her eyes meet yours before taking a bite. Her mouth becomes part of the conversation, drawing attention, inviting speculation. Her lips become more active, touched more often. There's licking, slight biting, playing with straws or utensils, all unconscious but undeniably potent. These aren't signs of hunger. They're echoes of a different appetite. Hair becomes a prop in this display, more expressive than many realize. She touches it often, letting it fall in specific ways, exposing skin, running fingers through strands with a rhythm that mirrors her rising internal temperature. Her neck becomes a canvas, tilted, revealed, highlighted, as if offering one of her most vulnerable zones for your notice. These movements are never random. They are ancient signals of intimacy spoken through the oldest language known to humankind. Each of these gestures alone may seem trivial, but together they create a symphony of meaning. The cumulative effect is unmistakable. It's in the synchronized breathing when the two of you speak. It's in how her body mirrors yours, adapting posture and pace in a dance of mutual resonance. It's in how she positions herself to stay near, while subtly claiming the space between you as hers. And perhaps most unmistakably, it's in the jealousy, the territorial instinct that stirs when another woman enters the frame. Watch how she reacts, the subtle stiffening, the sudden increase in physical closeness, the heightened gestures. These are not flukes. These are claims of interest performed under the influence of something deeper than choice. She may not say it aloud, she may never confess what her body is revealing, but if you know what to look for, if your eyes are tuned, if your awareness is sharpened, you'll see it. You'll see how instinct overrides etiquette, how attraction overrides composure, how centuries of biological wiring speak louder than any spoken word. A woman's desire, when genuine and unfiltered by pretense, doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It emerges through subtle, rhythmic expressions that blend into her presence so naturally most men miss them. But the ones who don't, who notice the way her energy shifts, the micro movements of her body, the subtle orchestration of her environment, are the ones who've learned that true communication happens long before words ever cross her lips. This kind of awareness isn't taught in classrooms or whispered among friends. It's gained through observation, attention, and the slow cultivation of sensitivity to physical nuance. When a woman is truly drawn to someone, there's an almost imperceptible change in how she inhabits the space around her. It begins with proximity, but it doesn't stop there. She starts to manipulate her environment, not dramatically, but deliberately. Her phone finds its way near yours. Her purse ends up beside your seat. She lays claim to the small, invisible territory between you, subtly integrating her presence into your world. These actions aren't accidents, they're non-verbal declarations, silent signals of belonging. Then comes the shift in how she situates herself in the room. No longer content with being just within view, she gravitates toward corners, nooks, alcoves, where others can't easily intrude. She guides the interaction toward spaces that feel secluded even when surrounded by people. Cafes become confessionals, lounges become havens. She lowers her voice not for secrecy, but to weave intimacy into the moment. It's not what's said that matters anymore. It's how it's shared, how the space closes around just the two of you, like a warm breath. Even her choice of seating reveals volumes. When she could have chosen the opposite end of a couch but opts for the cushion next to yours instead. When she slides in just close enough for your arms to brush. When she chooses the bar stool nearest yours without hesitation. These choices say everything that words can't. A woman who has no intention of drawing you in won't seek this closeness. She'll keep safe distance. But one who's intrigued, who's stirred by the chemistry blooming between you, will close that space as if pulled by gravity. Every angle she presents to you becomes calculated, yet seemingly effortless. She doesn't sit stiffly or create barriers with her arms or objects. She relaxes, she opens. Her posture turns soft, accessible. Shoulders slant slightly toward you, knees subtly angled in your direction. There's trust in her body language, comfort, but also tension, an electric, unspoken kind that simmers just below the surface. And then there's what she reveals in the way she breathes. The woman who is truly stirred doesn't simply speak. She exhales. Her words ride on waves of breath that lengthen, deepen, and slow. Her sentences grow more languid, as if time itself bends around the desire to remain in your presence a little longer. And you notice something even more primal, how the rise and fall of her chest changes rhythm, how the air seems thicker between you, how each inhale draws you in a bit closer. These breathing patterns don't come from effort. They arise from the sympathetic nervous system tuning her body for closeness. Look too at her pulse, not with fingers, but with the eye. The thrum of excitement reveals itself in the tiny flicker at her neck, in the visible twitch near her wrist, in the color that flushes beneath her skin. Her blood doesn't lie. When arousal courses through her, it shows in the blush blooming across her upper chest, in the glow that lights her cheeks, in the energy that radiates from her skin like heat from embers. These changes aren't cosmetic. They're involuntary, unfiltered echoes of biology responding to chemistry, and her gestures evolve. No longer abrupt or functional, her movements gain fluidity. She begins to linger in motions. Fingers trace outlines of her glass more slowly. She tucks her hair behind her ear more often. She plays with her necklace, caressing it with a rhythm that mimics thought but hides intent. Her hands become messengers of a story she isn't yet ready to speak, drawing attention to her skin, to her curves, to the soft places her gaze dares you to explore. These hand movements often pair with another signal so easy to miss, yet so revealing when noticed: her lips. When attraction takes root, her lips become animate. She wets them without realizing, nibbles the bottom one while listening, smiles with just enough slowness to let the smile stretch into something deeper than amusement. Sometimes she'll draw her index finger across her lip or tilt her chin slightly upward, inviting your attention to the very words she's not saying. But if she starts to share food or drink with you, take notice. A woman who offers you a sip from her straw, who invites you to taste from her plate, isn't just being generous. She's testing shared boundaries, seeing how easily your experiences blend. It's an offering, yes, but also a metaphor. The ease with which she crosses that threshold says volumes about the thresholds she's contemplating in her mind. And then there are the moments she begins to display what can only be described as vulnerability, but not in the emotional sense most associate with the word. This is a physical vulnerability, a showing of the throat, a head tilt that bears the delicate stretch of skin along her neck, a lean backward that exposes her chest ever so slightly. These are evolutionary signs, instincts that signal trust, relaxation, submission to the closeness that is beginning to build. She may not be aware of doing them, but her body is. Her body has already begun preparing. Her arms, which once might have been crossed or protective, now rest openly. Her palms become visible more often. Her gestures widen slightly, making room for you in her personal sphere. And the more time you spend with her, the more you'll notice these opening behaviors become baseline. There's no pretense in them. There's no resistance. There's only the pull, unmistakable and magnetic. Then come the small future anchors, suggestions that might sound casual but are layered with meaning. We should try that place together. You'd love this movie. Next weekend, maybe we could... These aren't simply ideas. They're invitations, breadcrumbs leading towards shared experiences, and woven through them is one core desire: continuation. A longing not just for now, but for next. What happens when another woman enters the picture? Everything sharpens. The woman who has been quietly expressing desire suddenly leans in, makes her presence more obvious. Maybe she laughs a little louder. Maybe her touch grows bolder. Maybe she suddenly finds a reason to compliment you or hold your attention longer. She doesn't do it out of malice. She does it because her instinct recognizes competition. She's not being aggressive, she's being territorial, and it's one of the most revealing moments in all of human behavior. Jealousy, when unprovoked, is a nuisance. But jealousy, when sparked by attraction, becomes a kind of glowing signpost. Watch how she interacts with other women around you. Does she assess them quickly? Does her body stiffen when you laugh with someone else? These aren't petty reactions, they're protective instincts. She wants to feel secure in her claim before anyone else makes one, and she'll do it without saying a word. Perhaps most compelling is the way she begins to alter her physical presentation, not through total transformation, but through small intentional changes designed to accentuate attraction. She might tug at the hem of her top, readjust the neckline of her blouse, let her coat slide off a little earlier than necessary. Her fingers might trail along the edge of her skirt, subtly repositioning fabric to reveal just a bit more. These aren't wardrobe malfunctions, they're recalibrations, and they speak louder than compliments. Her grooming intensifies too, though always under the surface. She checks her reflection more often, applies lip balm again, refixes a stray strand of hair. Each action is a whisper. Am I showing up the way I want to be seen? Am I highlighting the parts of myself I most want him to notice? She plays with jewelry in increasingly suggestive ways, fingers circling a pendant near her collarbone, bracelets clicking softly as she moves her wrists, earrings dangling to catch your gaze. These are not just accessories, they are cues, signals of allure, intentional, though not always conscious. Her breathing continues to change. Her words come more slowly, her focus deepens. You sense it in how her gaze lingers on you, even as others speak. You feel it in the way she nods at your words, not just to agree, but to encourage you to say more. The attention she gives you becomes a current, a stream you don't want to step out of. Everything about her starts to synchronize with your rhythms. Your posture becomes her posture, your gestures mirrored in hers. You cross your leg, so does she. You lean in, she follows. You exhale deeply, and a moment later she does too. The two of you aren't just conversing, you're harmonizing. And you didn't plan it. It just happened. In these moments, attraction is no longer speculation, it's evident. The signals are no longer scattered, they're converging. What began as a glance has become an atmosphere, and the awareness of that energy is what separates the men who connect from those who confuse politeness with passion. Some men remain oblivious, chasing women who are simply kind or courteous, failing to recognize that their kindness was never coded with desire. Others spend years misreading friendliness for longing. But the man who studies, who learns the map of biology, the choreography of arousal, is never lost. He knows when he's invited and when he's being entertained. He knows when a woman's body is leaning in while her words stay guarded. And he knows that bodies don't lie, not when arousal takes over. The most powerful advantage you can cultivate is not charm or wealth or height. It's perception. To know what others don't, to see what's unspoken, to respond with confidence because the evidence is right in front of you, not in her speech, but in her physiology. When you know how to decode female desire, you stop guessing and start knowing. You waste no time on those who aren't drawn to you. You escalate only when the fire's already burning. And when the opportunity presents itself, you meet it with presence, not hesitation. Women's bodies are fluent in a language most have forgotten how to interpret. But that language is still there, in every breath, every glance, every brush of a hand. It waits to be read, not like a book, but like a symphony, layered, complex, and profoundly honest. All it takes is the willingness to listen with your eyes, Because in the end, every signal is a doorway, and every man must decide whether to walk through or keep knocking on doors that will never open.